Dr. Sundar Raman KS. He is the Managing Director of Shiva Textile Limited and also is Chairman of Indian Technical Textile Association. We are also privileged to have Dr. Karnav Patel. He is from AIMS Hospital and Apollo Hospitals. We have with us Dr. Ketan Vadodaria, Associate Senior Faculty, Textile Design Department, National Institute of Design, based at Ahmedabad. We also welcome Mr. K.R. Navneet Krishnan. He is the Assistant Director to GLR Laboratories and also sponsoring this IMDR webinar along with Meditech and Healthcare Africa 2020. I also welcome our webinar partner, Dr. D.L. Pandya, for his great initiative since last 25 years. Without wasting much time, I would request Dr. Sundar Raman to give his special address. Over to you, Dr. Sundar Raman.
Good afternoon, friends. I guess it's good afternoon for all Indian friends and good morning for our friends in Africa. So good morning and good afternoon to you all respectively. At the outset, I'm very happy to be part of this IMDI webinar 2020, part of this expo that's happening in Africa, Indo-Africa Business Partnership Summit. And my special thanks to Mr. Sanyal Desai from Radical for inviting me to give this talk on this occasion. Friends, I think we live in very exciting and uncertain times right now. COVID-19 has turned the world topsy-turvy as we know it. From the very structured life that we used to have, we have come into dangerous times, dangerous and exciting times. And it's in times like these that the opportunities arise for those who are able to look beyond their immediate circumstances and see where the world is heading and how somebody should prepare for this. My own company, Shiva Textile, just to give you a context of why I think probably Sanyalji thought that it was apt that I should talk about this. I run a technical textiles company called Shiva Textile, and like he said, I also get an overview on what's happening in the technical textiles and medical textile sectors because I'm the chairman of the Indian Technical Textiles Association. When we started the journey in India into PPE, it was a journey of starting from zero. Somewhere in late February, the government of India got to understand that there was a major crisis coming in. And then they also realized parallelly that products were not available in the quantities or to the standards that were prescribed by the Ministry of Health after checking with the experts on what the views of WHO and other organizations were as to what is adequate protection in terms of PPE for this corona crisis, which is when this whole scramble started to actually create an industry virtually from nothing. Because it is in these crisis moments, we realize that unless you have national capabilities, you are at the mercy of some other country. And if they have a supply constraint because of their own domestic problems, you are left with nothing. You know, that was the story for India. And I'm just going to tell you that story and sort of conclude on what parallels Africa can learn from it and where the opportunities lie. In February, we were actually faced with the situation that we had to start making so many hundred thousands of coveralls on a daily basis for the Indian demand itself, let alone the export demand. And there was a scramble for raw materials. There was a scramble for actually testing these products. There was a scramble to understand what are these kinds of products and how to go forward. Luckily for us, there did exist labs in India which had been calibrated according to American labs, according to NABL standards on multiple international formats. So we had credible opportunities to actually test the products that were coming out of India. And Government of India in the initial phases gave very attractive pricing on the products and hence created a whole wave of manufacturers out of India who could claim to have products that were certified and of meeting the highest quality standards that were required. As we go through this last 4 months, I am amazed to see the human psychology at play when a pandemic comes into place. I remember that the early stages of our corona infection, when it started, I remember how lockdowns were imposed in most countries in the world, and ours was no exception. And I remember that how in those times, when really corona had not really spread much, we had actually completely barricaded ourselves in our houses. We did not travel outside. We took abundant precautions, and we were probably best prepared in those days. And definitely, I would say, because of those measures, the pandemic did come down to some extent, or the spread or the rate of growth of the pandemic did come down to some extent. But I think it's a study in human psychology to see how today, 4 months into the crisis, when the lockdowns have been eased because of economic necessities of the government, we see people congregating outside, wearing masks in their necks, and not taking any adequate precaution at all. Surprisingly, in days when the coronavirus infection is at a peak, when there are thousands of cases in each district going on right now. And I can say that if this is going to be the trend, and if this is going to be the, the social behavior of the masses, and without, I'm sure, any credible vaccine option going to come in the next 12 months, you can say that this corona opportunity for PPE manufacturers is here to stay for some time. So we can reasonably say that any decisions that have to be taken in the form of people getting into the PPE manufacturing sector can be taken with not less than a 12-month window of opportunity, and probably even further. We do not know beyond that, but a 12-month vision is not a bad idea to have. And I'm saying this important because it's very important right now that those people who are in the medical PPE manufacturing space take measures for the medium to long term rather than think in terms of 1 or 2 months or 3 months. And I mean that in the sense of the game changer, or the ones who are going to survive, the differentiators, would be those who actually get the right kind of certifications and the right kind of credibility of supplying products into the market. As we have gone through this 4 months and having had a ringside view of the pandemic, I can see a plethora of companies who have no experience in PPE manufacturing jumping into the fray with hardly any idea of the quality standards that are required to actually qualify for proper healthcare workers in using these PPEs. Today in India, there exists an abundance of mask making machines. Let me take that as an example. Somewhere in 4 months back, somewhere in the period of April, I had actually predicted that the price of an N95 mask, not a NIOSH certified mask, but an Indian lab certified mask in India would come down to 15 rupees to 20 rupees. That's about 20 cents ex factory, 20 cents USD ex factory, from about 100 to 150 rupees ex factory, which was prevailing in the month of April. And it has happened. Today, I know of not less than 20 to 25 machineries that are available for sale in the market, making automated N95 masks to the tune of about 100,000 units a day. Because people did not forecast that there would be an oversupply of these machineries into the market without any significant differentiation of the product. The same is the case with the PPE industry today, where we had actually started with an $8 approximately price point with the Indian government game as a crisis response to Indian manufacturers to rise up to the occasion. And I remember in many of the forums that I was addressing during the months of April and May, explaining that these products do not get more than $3 in international markets. Essentially, what has happened is that there has been rapid market maturity in PPE markets in terms of the price parity. The opportunistic pricings that were at play in the months of April and probably in the months of May, when there were global shortages and national shortages, have now been eased out. And today, the price points have come to very reasonable levels, probably about 20 to 30% higher than pre-corona times, which is to be expected. I think 20 to 30% price hikes because of raw material hikes and all other factors across the entire PPE value chain from pre-corona times is completely acceptable. A 200 to 300% rise is not acceptable. So what we're seeing is a rapid maturation of the market at this point of time, where only credible people will survive. This is a very quick learning process. People have actually come into this industry and exited this industry in 4 months' time. I'm talking about predominantly 95% of the people who are part of the system. And those 95% are very important because they are the ones who make sure that those quantities are available to the market. The traditional players, while very credible and probably established, would not be able to supply large quantities into the global market, particularly in the current demand. In light of this, my first point to viewers who are in the PPE manufacturing sector would be quality, quality, quality. Nothing else matters. I would really urge every single manufacturer to work towards getting global certifications for our products. It is the credibility of these products, particularly when used in a healthcare environment. If the credibility is the most important aspect, price is only secondary. This has been my personal experience in this journey going forward, that if you have the ability to exhibit the credibility of your product quality, you would not necessarily have to be the lowest priced person in the market to thrive in this particular business. So the challenges on credibility, the challenges on getting international certifications are many. I am quite aware of that, but there is no other way to go. The only way for us to get recognition for our products is to get them internationally certified. And it does take a bit of effort, but there is no shortcuts to going there. The second major point I would like to highlight to both users of PPE, whether it's coveralls or whether it is masks, in the Indian subcontinent, in the Asian context, and particularly in the African context, is that I believe that we should not follow Western standards in their absolute sense. The business of PPE coveralls and PPE masks in the Western world is essentially a single-use disposable product. And there is no way that's going to change. Now, that is the case in those countries because there is a higher level of affluence where they can afford to actually dispose these products. There are certain mandates because many of the funding for the healthcare systems in these countries come from insurance companies who cannot afford liability in terms of product reuse and recertification. And hence, the Western world has gone to predominantly a single use and throw disposable market, which has its own challenges of waste disposal because a huge amount of PPE is going to go into these countries and go through those waste disposal systems. Now, Western waste disposal systems may be more advanced and may be able to cope up with this burden. But I'm sure you and I would agree that India or Africa, or for that matter, Asia, would not be in a position to be able to take this burden onto our ecosystems. And hence, my advice, my suggestion to members of this industry would be to actually get into reusable products and use novel technologies for creating affordable, reusable solutions in the medical sector, which also at the same time conform to the highest standards of medical protection as envisioned under the ASTM or in the EN code or under any of the global standards. Let me give you a case to point. We look at N95 masks as single-use disposable products. Of course, most of us don't dispose it because of lack of availability. People use it for 2 or 3 days, at least, even in a healthcare environment. I believe that that is an unaffordable cost to the common man. I believe that we need to actually start looking at using N95 quality masks with the same kind of filtration systems of having 0.1 micron filtration efficiencies for particulate filtration efficiency, 99% plus bacterial filtration efficiency, and all the common standards. But also substitute some of the external layers with reusable cloth masks treated with novel antiviral solutions, which act as an automatic disinfectant protocol, and where these masks can be comfortably and safely reused by medical professionals without having anything. I'm talking about creating a super N95 reusable mask, which would, if you look at it from the cost of usage, per usage cost, be at a far lower and affordable price point compared to whatever is there in the market today. We have, as a company, done solutions like this, and I know of quite a few Indian companies who are all working towards this. I think in this transnational partnership of trying to do business, I think these products should come into prominence. If you take the subject of coveralls, it's a very interesting story where a level 4 synthetic blood penetration level coverall was taken as the standard for this product. Now, in the case of the coronavirus, the need for a level 4 product is actually very questionable. We are not dealing with projectile, fluid vomiting like in Ebola or other highly contagious diseases. Essentially, corona is a predominantly aerosol-borne infection, and you do not need these absolute barrier protections. Absolute barrier protections like level 4 gowns are quite uncomfortable to use for users. I can tell you from personal experience that it's pretty uncomfortable to use these gowns. I believe it is time right now for our medical authorities to figure out what is the right format of protective coveralls that medical personnel need to wear. My personal belief is that with a certain amount of protection for the forward areas which are with high contact possibilities, but using other materials to create lower cost gowns, even reusable gowns for that matter, using membrane bonded films on polyester fabrics, which allow for disinfection and at least a 10 time reuse of products with the highest level of safety, is what countries like India and Africa need to examine. I believe the solutions exist. It's only a matter of keeping our minds open that we can actually adopt these kind of products into the market and make it meaningful for our thing without spending too much money. Create a completely new opportunity for PPE equipment manufacturers to service the needs of our countries. There are great opportunities coming forward. Today, there's a global shortage in terms of nitrile gloves, and I'm sure many of you know that there are opportunities happening in not only trading of these products, but also in the future, creating limited capacities at national level for these products. In summary, I think it's a wonderful time to be in the medical PPE business. The opportunity is there for credible players who want to be long-term, who are ready to invest in quality and certifications. I think there has to be a larger consensus of governments, healthcare specialists, PPE manufacturers coming together to create affordable, reusable, highly protective solutions for the market, which would be also environmentally friendly. I believe the opportunity is there, and I believe that forums like this are the ways that we can express and share our thoughts towards creating a better future. My thanks to the organizers and my best wishes to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sundaram, for your exciting presentation highlighting the business potential for the technical textiles in the healthcare sector. Your advice to the entrepreneurs who wish to get into this business, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic, will surely be helpful and help more entrepreneurs to get into this sector in the coming times. As organizers, we look forward to a lot of interaction with you in the coming times, and maybe together we can help the new people who wish to enter in the in the sector. Thank you very much for being with us, for sparing your valuable time to be with us here on the third day of this webinar. The theme being technologies, quality requirements, and business opportunities for medical textiles, PPEs, and face masks. We could not have got a better person than you for the keynote address. Thank you. May I now invite Mr. D.L. Pandya, the webinar convener, to please extend his speech, please. Mr. D.L. Pandya.
Good morning and good afternoon, dignitaries and delegate friends from Africa and India. Welcome to this third webinar focusing on technologies, quality requirements, and business opportunities in medical textiles, PPEs, face masks, etc. Friends, COVID-19 pandemic has placed greater emphasis on the benefits of medical textiles. It is not possible to imagine a hospital without medical textile and based products, disposables or non-disposables or implantables. Medical textiles is one of the fastest growing subsectors of medical device industry, and post-pandemic, its importance will further increase. Doctors and nurses on the front lines of the war against the COVID-19 are at the heightened risk of exposure to the new coronavirus. What promises to keep them safe is the personal protective equipment or PPE, right now the world's most famous. As you will learn from our four learned speakers, one you have already listened to the keynote address, and the industry leaders from the industry. India has come a long way in just last 6 months from a position of total imports with just 4 to 5 manufacturers to a global manufacturing hub with more than 600 to 700 manufacturers. The galaxy of speakers today, including industry leaders, researcher and designer, medical professional, and quality assurance professional, will share a lot of information with you. The objective of today's webinar, the third and the last in the series during this virtual exhibition, is to provide insight into this evolving sector that can offer vast potential for entrepreneurship to startups and also established industry in diversifying from Africa as well as India. I'm sure the delegates will certainly benefit from this participation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandya. Friends, Mr. Pandya is the webinar coordinator and also the managing director of Medical Plastics Data Service, which is one of the organizers of this seminar. And along with Radical Exhibitions, they have been instrumental in gathering everyone into this virtual trade show and the 3-day webinar series on various topics, and in particular with a focus on the business between India and Africa. Africa, as you all know, has come up hugely with more than half of their countries in the entire continent getting into the middle income group, and 5 of the 12 largest, fastest growing economies being in Africa. So I'm sure the delegates today and the visitors of the virtual trade show will get huge benefit of this 3 days conference. Let us now move on to the next speaker. However, as you may recognize, Dr. Pranav Patel was there yesterday also. Although he was there today, I'm going to once again give you a brief introduction because we have many new people today who may not be knowing Dr. Pranav Patel. Dr. Pranav made a very nice presentation in yesterday's webinar. A dentist by qualification, he was awarded as the best outgoing student during his pre-graduation days. He completed his master's in oral and maxillofacial surgery and has been practicing in the Apollo Hospital, Ahmedabad in Gujarat in the head and neck oncology department as a consultant, working mainly on advanced surgeries which invoke microvascular surgery as well as rehabilitation aimed at giving excellent functional results. He is also the founder of two startups, HashiCare and Salvo India. He is also the technical advisor to mask manufacturing companies as well as some startups. May I invite Dr. Karnav for his presentation, please. Dr. Karnav Patel.
Thank you so much, sir, for the introduction. Am I audible enough?
Yes. Yes, Karnav.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pandya sir, especially for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Radical Communications and everyone, all the organizers. Today, I'll be talking on business opportunities for medical textiles, about N95 masks and PPEs in brief. I think we are fortunate enough to have excellent talk from Sundar Raman sir. I was it was an excellent talk about the three words which I liked was quality, quality, and quality. And even that is something which I want to reiterate. So coming to the global medical textiles market, which is valued at around $16,000 million. Now these projections, which is said that it will grow by 4.9% by 2025. I think the prospects have changed a lot because of the pandemic and also owing to the rising geriatric population, the ongoing technological advancement, and stringent legislative framework in place, which mandate the use of medical textiles, and which is about to change the global forecast. So basically, the medical textiles are classified into 5 categories: implantable type inside the patient's body, which are used; non-implantable, which is used on the patient's body; the extracorporeal device type, which is used beside the patient's body; the healthcare textiles for the body; and the hygiene textile, which is also for the body, used mainly for the consumer products. So here is the brief. Under the hygiene and healthcare medical textile comes the surgical drapes, face masks, beddings, pillow covers. These are the products which are being in high demand at present because of the pandemic. Then comes the non-implantable medical textile, the stockings, wound dressings, tubular bandages, gauze and all, which are in regular demand, which were pre-COVID or post-COVID era. Coming to the implantable medical textile type, vascular grafts, abdominal meshes, heart valves and patches, stents, ligaments. Now, there are certain areas where India and even Africa lacks to invest more is this area. And then there is extracorporeal medical textile, which involves the hemodialysis, artificial liver and membranes and leukodepletion filters and all. So this is in brief about how the coverage is. As you can see, implantable goods, non-implantable goods and hygiene products involve the major application areas. So one thing which we can note is that China is much more ahead in these areas, while India and Africa still lags behind. Why so? So there is still less penetration due to factors like less awareness among people, cost of product, and non-availability of many products to common people. I'm not saying that we are not much aware, but we can still do much better than what we are doing right now. And the key focus should be always on quality, which we have not focused. There are only few manufacturers who are focusing on quality, but we need to focus much more, like a major share, more than 90% are not, who are still not focusing on quality, should be aware of the technical aspects and focus more on the quality so that we can match the global standards. But now the usage of technical textiles is increasing due to the new generation with higher income, more education, and ease of access to media and internet. With the evolvement of more modern hospitals with the new NABH rules, the growth of medical textiles will be proportional and is about to boom in future too. I'll be talking a brief about masks. So as you would have known that there was heavy investment on masks in the last 4 to 5 months, and a lot of manufacturers have got in who had no clue of how masks are manufactured. So basically, there are different types of masks. The type of masks used are related to the particular risk profile of the personnel. It is not that masks are utilized only in the health industry. There are various industries where masks are required. There are 2 types of masks which are recommended for the category of personnel working in the hospital or community setting. So the first is triple layer medical mask. A triple layer medical mask is a disposable, flu-resistant mask which can give protection against coughing, sneezing. Basically, we call it a surgical mask. We have been using this 3-ply mask in surgery before 15 years or so. We have been using today and will be using in future also. So this is something which is going to be consistent for future prospects. Then coming to the N95 mask or respirator. Now this is the protective device with high filtration efficiency to airborne particles to provide the requisite air seal to the wearer as they are devised to achieve a higher facial fit. Now what happens with these masks is that the profile of the mask is different. The facial fit and the seal matters a lot, which we'll be discussing in upcoming slide. Such masks should be clearly identified, should have clearly identifiable internal and external faces. It can have either duckbill or cup-shaped structure design that does not collapse against the mouth. If these masks are correctly worn, the filtration capacity of this mask exceeds much higher than the triple layered mask discussed earlier. Since these masks provide a much tighter air seal or a peripheral seal, we can say, than the triple layered medical mask, they are designed to protect the wearer from inhaling inborn or airborne particles. Now coming to the mask selection, as I said even yesterday, and I'll reiterate it today, that the seal is much more important than the brand. I have come across many of my friends from the medical fraternity telling that why don't we get a 3M brand or why don't we get a Venus brand mask, and they are ready to pay maybe 200, 300 rupees for the same mask, and they still don't get a proper seal. So what I would like to say here is that it is not the mask brand which is important. The facial profile, see, I'm a maxillofacial surgeon, we operate the facial area. So the convexity of the face is different, the facial fat in each person is different. Whichever manufacturer makes the mask, they make in a universal number, like maybe for medium size, so that it fits around 75 to 80% of the people. It is not necessary that each and every person will get an adequate seal with a particular 3M mask or a particular mask manufactured by Magnum or Venus. So the person should identify which mask provides them a perfect seal and then use that mask. Similarly, there is something known as the fit test, which can be done by qualitative and quantitative methods, which has to be done by the manufacturer, which is practically not possible for doctors to be done. Coming to the basic requirements which has to be followed, the first one is particle filtration efficiency for N95, bacterial filtration efficiency, the breathability, whether after wearing the mask we are able to breathe well or not, because that will decide whether we are going to work for long hours or not. So if I have a surgery which is going to last for 10 hours, am I in a position to wear that N95 mask? Coming to splash resistance, if there is any blood spill during the surgery, will the mask provide me particular protection from the spill? And coming to flammability, because we work in an area where there are flammable material like gases from the inhalation gases for anesthesia, which have flammable chances. So will it protect in case of any flammability arising in the OT environment? So these are 5 basic requirements or tests which are laid down right now, which are considered even for global standards. So in case if N95 masks are not available, what are the other options we should be looking for? So other types are R or P95, NP or R99 mask, or even same level of N100 face respirators. We also have air purifying elastomeric full face or half face respirators. We have some Indian manufacturers coming up with powered air purifying PARP high efficiency respirators. We have HEPA filters in use and SAR supplied air respirators, which can be used as options. And there are huge manufacturing scopes for these areas because we have not been doing much in these arenas. A lot of people are not aware of why we use the term N and N95. I have come across maybe more than 20-30 brands who are manufacturing N95 brand with the logo. They are placing the word NIOSH over the mask, but they have no clue what NIOSH is. So NIOSH is a body which decides, they set standards in US. And there are particular reasons why we call a particular mask N or P or R. So why it is called as N? Because the mask is not resistant to oil. Why it is known as R? Because it is resistant to oil. And why it is known as P? Because it is oil proof or partially resistant to oil. The oil testing is done for these masks using dioctyl phthalate, and for N named filters, it is done using sodium chloride filters. The level of filtration capacity is tested using 95, 99, and 99.97. If the filtration capacity is above 95, it is categorized as N95 mask. If it is between N95 and 99, it is structured as N95. If it is above N99, like the filtration capacity is 99.90 to 99.96, it is categorized as N99 mask. Above that, it is N100 mask. It is a bit confusing, but you can be clear if you go through once or twice. So that was in brief about mask, in particular about N95 mask. Now I'll be talking in brief about PPEs. As it has been described in proper by Sundaraman sir, I'll be telling little more. So they are protecting gears designed for health workers to minimize the exposure to any biological agent. In present era, we are talking more about the COVID. PPEs have become extremely essential during this pandemic. So coming to the coverall gowns, which are designed to protect the torso of the healthcare providers. The coveralls typically provide around 360-degree protection because they protect the whole body, including the back, the lower legs, and sometimes the head and feet as well, in comparison to the medical or isolation gowns, which do not provide the whole body protection. So some of the important parameters to be considered by the manufacturer. Along with the fabric mask, which is measured in GSM, tensile strength, elongation percentage, the resistance to liquid penetration, the pressure in centimeter, the synthetic blood penetration, and the bacterial penetration resistance test are some of the criteria which has to be taken into consideration. Coming to the type also, the single overall type garment with integrated hood is designed to match the head contour with elastic around the face. There should be a front zipper with locker, slider, and zipper should be covered with a storm flap with provision of self-adhesive sealing. Elastic is also required on wrist and lower leg area. It depends on the requirement, so that varies depend on the department which has to be taken care of. Coming to the fabrication, sewing, adhesion, thermal or radio frequency welding, ultrasonic welding, or other suitable technique or combination of techniques is followed by application of sealing tape in stitch area. Even this was a debatable topic in the recent days because a lot of people were confusing hot air seam seal with normal stickers, blue tape colored stickers which were being put. So the sealing tape should be hot air adhesive type, and the synthetic blood penetration test should be done with minimum width of the tape at least around 16 millimeters, only if required. As sir had mentioned very clearly that coronavirus might not require this stringent loss as compared to Ebola or other biological agents. So coming to the future prospects of medical textiles. So there are a lot of unexplored arenas in medical textiles or technical textiles. Even in mask, proper regulations has to be followed. The ISO standards, like there are a lot of fake regulations, fake certificates which are in the market. We need to follow global standard, go to the proper channel where proper NIOSH approval or FDA approval or any BSI ISO approvals are needed. That has to be taken. And we need to focus on global standards so that we can reach, so the quality never comes in question and we can export or manufacture without any doubts. Thank you. I think this was in brief what I can tell in 15 minutes. Any doubts you can ask me or you can mail me.
Thank you, Karnavai. We will take up the questions if there are any on a later stage. But thank you very much. You gave a lot of information about the various kinds of masks and the PPE kits and what issues arise when people do not understand the various kinds of masks and the application of those. Thank you very much. It would be very useful.
Thank you.
Friends, we now have with us Dr. Ketan Vadodaria, who is the Associate Senior Faculty, Textile Design Department at the National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. He is a PhD in textiles from the Heriot-Watt University in the UK. During his professional career, he has worked as the head of the Center of Excellence for Medical Textiles at the CITRA, supported by the Ministry of Textiles, Government of India. He holds more than 10 years of experience in the field of textiles such as short staple spinning, denim production, technical services, quality assurance department, research and development, testing labs, teaching and consultancy. He has headed different NABL accredited laboratories such as the physical, biological, polymer, and chemical and incubation centers. He is also acted as a consultant to new entrepreneurs and helped them to start business in the field of medical textiles. During the COVID pandemic, he has helped at least 4 industries to start the business in the area of PPE manufacturing. He also has the experience in the fields of advanced textiles such as home textiles, medical textiles, nanofiber production, smart and functional fabrics and fibers and textiles, and the other areas. Published several papers, book chapters, and presented research work in various conferences. He has also won and worked on various R&D projects funded by industries and various government funding agencies. He has also filed few patents and has contributed immensely as the convener or expert member of committees for the development of several medical textile products BIS standards. May I invite Dr. Ketan Vadodaria to please make his presentation, please.
Thank you, Dharmendra Bhai, for introduction. And namaste, good morning, good afternoon to all, because India and Africa is in different time zone. So I will start with sharing the presentation. So almost Karnav sir's lecture and my lecture has lots of overlaps because I am from textile area, so I have covered those part. So I'll try to skip some of the part which is already discussed by Karnav sir. So I think medical textile it was sunrise industry, but now it is a sunrise industry looking to pandemics like Ebola or even this COVID-19, and some more may come in future. Let us hope it should not happen. But then where textile plays a major role. So, and India is again second largest textile exporter. Also, it is, I think, second largest employing industry in India after agriculture. So India has got strong base in conventional textile, and now India has started entering into technical textiles. So we can see in our day-to-day life, we are using textile from cradle to coffin almost. So it is almost next to our skin. And now this technical textile field is coming up across the globe, and there are 12 to 20 different technical textile fields are already identified, and on that many scientists and entrepreneurs are working hand in hand to develop some product and to manufacture them. So just for your idea, technical textile means these are the textiles which are made for a specific purpose. For example, medical textiles, they are made engineered using special fibers and special textile structures for medical purpose. Like that, there are other field, agro textiles, geo textiles, like that many fields are there in technical textiles. But then coming to the medical textile, it is one of the fastest growing field, not in India, I would say also across the globe. I think you can see this small picture, how the textile is being used in medical field. You can see one isolation kind of tent, and I think you can see in the second figure, you can see everything is green, that everything is almost covered with textiles. So textile is playing major role in medical industry. It can be seen in this from these photos. Again, it is nothing but the textile which is used for medical purpose. So I'll just keep it. And this already is told by Karnav sir, inside the body, on the body, beside the body, for the body. And, it may be hospital use or consumer product. And again, this all classification is done by Karnav sir. So I will just skip them. Uh, um, Coming to some of the features of the medical textile, so it always varies from the end use. So for example, if we take hydrophilic fibers or hydrophobic fibers, so like wound dressings, we need fluids to absorb. So there we need hydrophilic fibers. But barrier fabric like face mask or PPE, we need hydrophobic. There should be a biocompatibility if it is used for level above B, C, D. So if it is coming in contact with any kind of wound or it is implanted inside the body, there should be a biocompatibility. Sterilability is also one of the important parameters because we have to sterile these products before we use it. So the transmission of microbes should not happen. So like that, I will not go much depth into the properties of the medical textiles, but like as based on the end use, this property of medical textiles are decided. Uh, so the main benefits to the hospital using medical textile is that now it actually acts to improve healthcare. Many new innovative medical products are coming up, and more technological advancement in textile technology is helping to develop many new medical textile products. Devices and more efficient devices, more cheaper processes. So I think future is bright. Again, comfort and convenience to patient and support medical staff. Infection. So this is one of the biggest cause in India, and I heard that sometime due to HAI, medical tourism is also getting affected in India, but then the measures are being taken. So like that, many benefits are there, and there are opportunities also in India particularly, and I would say it is similar for the other developing countries. So these things are already discussed by Karnav sir: higher birth rate and aging population. Like India has the mother, wherever there is a birth, mother and child, different kind of medical textiles are being used. Same with the aging population. This world is, or particularly India, is becoming diabetic capital. So there also usage of medical textile is supposed to increase. Uh, India itself is a big domestic market, and the penetration is very less compared to the advanced countries. So there is a scope for medical textiles. Affordability is also questioned, but as the production increases, these products are becoming affordable, and they are being utilized. So for example, sanitary napkin was not used earlier, but now sanitary napkin has penetrated. Slowly, baby diapers are getting penetrated in the Indian market, and the more further costly product, adult diaper is also coming up. So like that, these products are entering into developing countries now, and there is a huge scope for these products. Also, as the stringent legislative framework and mandation of this medical textile products, the government of India has done really good job, and promoting this medical textile into certain ministries like Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Railways, so that this medical textile product, if mandated, the consumption will increase and the industry will come up. Again, Ministry of Textile has set up Center of Excellence for Medical Textiles. There are R&Ds and testings are possible, and many special zone like Visakhapatnam, we have got medtech zone. So particularly focus for medical device, this kind of zones are getting opened by government of India. And again, medical textiles are now classified as medical device. So with that regulatory framework comes, so again it will help uh, entrepreneurs to, particularly India, to for the import of the substandard medical textile. It will not come. So yes, at government level also there are lots of supporting steps are being taken. So there is a good opportunity for medical textile in India. Looking to our Indo-Africa relation, I mean, medical textile, I would say uh, India itself has got, as earlier I told, a very good hold on conventional textiles. And many of these products can be converted into medical or technical textile products. So in terms of natural fiber, synthetic fiber, or regenerated viscose fibers, at fiber level, raw material level itself, India is very strong. Even now, India has started manufacturing products, so even that can be imported or exported as per the need of the requirement. More R&D, collaborative R&Ds can be done to develop some product which are required for specific region or specific disease. Training, testing, and quality evaluation centers or agencies can be developed. So there is scope also between these two continents. Uh, there are some challenges also for medical textiles. Actually, lack of standards. Still, many standards has to be developed. So, and definitely we are working very fast on developing standards, particularly because these are medical products. Definitely, the quality of the product is important. Certain kind of raw materials, high-end raw materials and manufacturing techniques are still not available. So, but these things will develop as the industry is developing, as the demand is developing, all these stuffs are going to develop. Disposal of medical textile waste, and again, lack of trained manpower and interdisciplinary knowledge. So, knowledge of medical science and textile technology has to combine, and then that kind of manpower is not there. So, yeah, these are some challenges are there, but then it is not stopping industry to grow. Um, so again, this data I have taken from internet only, so I'm not sure the authenticity of this data, but the trade between India and Africa has stood almost US dollar 62.66 billion during 2017 and 18. So it's a good number, and the global medical textile industry is growing by average 4.9%, worth 23.3 billion by 2025. So here in making medical textiles, we are using all part in textile. We are using fibers, we are using yarns, we are using fabrics to make this medical textile product. For example, fibers means surgical cotton, yarn and filament means the sutures. Fabric means there are woven fabric, knitted fabric, non-woven, different kind of fabric structures are there in textile, and all are being used in the medical textiles. So major stake here is non-wovens, particularly because of I'm just taking this technical part also because it is necessary to know the property. So these non-wovens are usually non-porous. They are almost acting as more barrier structure compared to woven and knitted. So if you see PP kits and all kind of filters, they are usually developed using non-wovens. And almost 65% of share is there of non-wovens. Coming to woven, so like bed sheets, pillow covers, this kind of, even vascular graft, this kind of stuffs are used, made using woven structure. Almost 14 to 15% share is there of woven structure, which is the second largest. And coming to the knitted structure, where also many products are developed like masses, hernia mass, or some kind of stretchable structure wherever is required, knitted structure are being used. And all these technologies are available almost in India and other countries also. Just somebody has to work out and develop these kind of structures with required properties which can be used for medical purpose. Um, so there is another area, not only making product, another area for medical textile testing, you have to do physical testing, biological, chemical. So India itself had one lab pre-COVID which was center of excellence for medical textile for testing these products. But then within medical textile, particularly PP units. So even though lockdown was there, this kind of requirements were there. So yeah, here also people can think of doing, because testing is very much required. Either you are importing or exporting this medical textile product, and also when you are manufacturing it for your own consumption, also you have to test them. And testing lab for medical textile by industry, maybe it will be a dead image. It may not give any kind of profit. So many labs, we were not doing medical textile. Even the private labs, they have started doing this medical textiles testing. Again, medical textile can be classified as a consumer product and hospital product based on the end use. If somebody want to enter into business, so uh, consumer product already sanitary napkin, baby diapers, wipes, adult diapers are there, and hospital related products, usually implantables, non-implantables. Usually they will come in hospital segment. Uh, this medical textile, you can divide it in this way, that there are certain products which has got high margin but low volume, but there are many products which has got low margins but high volumes. So mostly implantable products will go into high margin, low volume, and this sanitary napkin, diaper, healthcare and hygiene products, they will come into low margin and high volume. So in between, many products will come. Just this is very broadly, I have made this table, but it may vary from country to country. But you can see the capital investment required, the profit margin. Implantable, it is high, profit margin is also high, but requirement is low. So here you can see how this industry is working. This is just very broad overview of this industry. Non-implantable again, and medium, low, and these are all relative terms. So related to implantable, non-implantable, whatever I have made, this terminology is related to each other. So again, it is already described by Karnav sir, what is PPE and what is RPE. RPE is nothing but respiratory protective equipments, and usually they are being used to filter any kind of particles. And you can see the kind of hazards which are available. I mean, which are there. Solid particles, liquid particles, vapors, gases. All these things can be filtered using this kind of RPEs. So they are called as face mask or respirators. You can see the size of different particles. Virus is one of the smallest, 0.05 micron. So all these particles, so based on the hazard, the mask quality is designed. So for medical purpose, we are following different standards where we are looking after barrier test, physical test, and the safety testing. And these things are already discussed by Karnav sir. But it is usually made up of three ply mask is made up of three layers. The outer layer is almost a kind of fluid resistant layer. The middle layer is made up of melt blown non-bond, which is actually acting as a filter. And the layer which is towards the skin has to be soft. So like that, these three ply face masks are being designed. Uh, for gowns and coveralls, there are some standards which are being followed. So American system follows AAMIPB 70, as well as the Europeans, they are following EN 13795. So here also mainly the testing is done is to see the, particularly in the barrier side, to see the synthetic blood penetration and viral penetration, which are the measure in the American system, whereas in European system, wet bacterial penetration and dry bacterial penetration is tested. So here the efficacy of gown may change in wet condition and dry condition. So in that case, it will be checked whether the virus, the bacteria are going on the other side of the gown or not, penetrating it on the from the gown or not. That is being tested. In viral penetration, I think this is one of the very stringent tests, and many of the manufacturers are not able to pass this test. And that is the reason there is a lot of need to work in R&D towards the development of fabric, which should stop the penetration of virus, but then it should be breathable. Breathability is a major requirement so that doctors can uh, stay without any kind of heat stress. Also, there are other properties, linting, strength, tensile strength, seam strength, all these things are required when you decide a fabric. And in order to meet uh, there are different levels defined by AMI. Level 1 is kind of minimum risk, where it is used for basic care or standard isolation for visitors. Level 2 is again low risk procedure for blood flow, suturing kind of stuff. Level 3. So these are the classification of surgical gown based on the risk. In India, we are following 0 to 3, level 0, 0, 1, level 1, level 2, level 3. And here, based on the risk, these level numbers are increasing. In order to meet this level, different kind of fabric structures are used. So spun bond, uh, double spun bond, milk blown, spun bond structure. So the three kind of fabrics are combined together, where milk blown is kind of a filter, and spun bond fabrics are giving support to the milk blown, because milk blown is not very strong fabric. Then spun bond, milk blown, milk blown. So different combination. Maybe there may be 3 milk blown inside the pack of 2 spun bond. So then the higher one is um, breathable viral barrier fabric. So these are all made up of non-woven structures, and usually they are disposable. But in India, many companies have started working on reusables also. So where woven fabrics are being laminated either with breathable or non-breathable kind of films. Still lot to work in this area, particularly for the development of the fabric for PPE. Um, Again, this is mentioned by Dr. Sundaraman sir, that it was a really success story in India, where the ministries, government agencies, manufacturers, workers, everybody worked together in lockdown period, and the PP industry was brought from maybe thousands a day to 4.5 lakhs, more than 4.5 lakhs pieces per day manufacturing capacity. So really, this is the success story which can be example for world also, that how a teamwork can work as a country, and then new industry can emerge even.
बबीत, गुड आफ्टरनून बबीत। बबीत, अब 15 मिनट में मैं फोन करूं, मेरा एक जूम चल रहा है, 10 मिनट मुझे लगेगी खाली, ओनली 10 मिनट्स ना प्लीज।
Okay. I think somebody's mic was on. Now these PPEs are not only used by hospital or healthcare workers, but also they are needed by many people because of this COVID, paramedical staff, even policing staff, even this barbers. Many people have started using it. There is a scope. The quality of fabric has to be decided based on the level of risk involved. So you may use lower quality for barber shop and higher quality for the medical professionals. So with this, I have not entered much into quality part because that was already discussed by Karnav sir. These are the few references, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ketan Bhai, for a very nice presentation, particularly a wealth of information on the potential business opportunities and challenges in the field of technical textiles in the healthcare sector for our delegates. Thank you very much. Friends, we now come to the last part of our today's webinar. And I'm pleased to recognize the presence of Mr. K.R. Navnita Krishnan, the Assistant Director, GLR Laboratories Private Limited. GLR Laboratories Private Limited has been kind enough to join this webinar even as a sponsor and a supporter, apart from the various government and professional associations and bodies that have supported these webinars and the virtual trade show, which I'm going to list out later part in the program. So, Mr. K.R. Navnitha Krishnan is a toxicologist with more than 19 years of experience in toxicology and biocompatibility studies. And he has worked in GLP certified contract research organizations on various levels during his professional career. He has a very good experience in toxicology, testing of medical devices, agrochemicals, and pharmaceuticals, especially in vivo toxicology tests. He has successfully contributed in setting up of quality systems in test facilities according to the OECD principles of GLP and ISO 17025 and has faced several GLP and ISO audits. He has done his master's in regulatory affairs and is pursuing a PhD in nanotoxicology. Today, we are calling him by Mr. Navnit Ramakrishnan. But now, in a few time, I am sure after his PhD, we'll be able to address him as Dr. Navnitha Krishnan. Great. A regular at many international and national conferences, he has himself organized national and international workshops and training programs related to medical devices and also published various scientific papers in peer-reviewed international journals related to nanoparticles. May I request Mr. Navnitha Krishnan to make his presentation, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Dharmendra sir. I thank Dr. Mr. D.L. Pandya for giving him this continuous opportunity to GLR Laboratories. I thank the organizers of this webinar, giving a wonderful platform to the delegates from India and Africa for getting an insight of the quality requirements of the PPE and medical textiles. And I also thank the previous speakers, Dr. Ketan and Dr. Garnav, as well as Dr. Sundar Raman. So they're given a clear picture about what is the requirement of the PPE and medical textiles quality systems now. So before going to the PPE and quality requirements, I'll give a brief insight about our company's profile now. Just 3 slides. That is, our laboratory is a GLP certified and ISO 17025 certified laboratory. We are the leaders in biocompatibility. Yeah. GLR Laboratories offers a cost-effective, high-quality biocompatible solutions for the medical devices sector. We have strong experience in biocompatible testing, chemical characterization, and biological safety assessments of medical devices. Our laboratory works with medical device manufacturers from across 40 countries now, and our test reports are readily accepted by FDA, notified bodies, and other global regulators. We have strong scientific and regulatory background. We are committed to scientific and service excellence. Our test facility is in Chennai. It is in Chennai, Mathur, Chennai 68. Our laboratory is GLP, OECD GLP certified, ISO 17025 certified, and Indian government CDSCO MD40 also we received on behalf of testing the medical device for the manufacturers. And we have a business and consultation offices in United Kingdom and US. We offer services like biocompatibility full end-to-end, like cytotoxicity to pyrogen, as well as the implantable studies and genotoxicity, carcinogenicity, all studies we can do in our laboratory. We do the chemical characterization, extractable leachable studies with risk assessment and talent estimation in our partnership laboratory. And we do consultations for biological safety assessment of the medical device. And we provide biocompatibility strategies for the medical device and toxicology reviews. And we have experience in addressing the regulatory questions for the biocompatibility test reports submitted by other laboratories also to the regulators. Our laboratory is led by the leaders like Dr. T.S. Kumaravel and Dr. S.S. Murugan. So Dr. T.S. Kumaravel is an American board certified toxicologist. He is having an R&D experience in Hiroshima University, National Institute of Health, US, and Ontario Cancer Institute of Canada. He has worked in various leading research laboratories in US and UK. To name some is Covance Laboratories. Biocompatibility programs. He has developed biocompatibility strategies for assessment of high risk and complementary medical devices. And he has more than 25 years experience in toxicology and biocompatibility. He has toxicology in PhD in toxicology from MGR Medical University. He served in leading organizations like IBAT, SGS, and RCC. He has extensive experience in operations and quality assurance of a test facility who works with GLP principles. He is a member of CPC's guideline committee, which oversees animal experimentation in India. So biocompatible PPE and medical devices, as previous speakers has given a clear picture that the PPE like gowns, coveralls, and medical textiles like a face mask, N95, and gloves and nitrile gloves and natural rubber latex gloves. So PPEs are used for personal protection. However, they themselves may cause adverse reactions like adverse skin reactions with prolonged use of PPE. The N95 mask, the rubber gloves have been reported. The N95 mask can cause acne, itch, and rash. That is, it because of the mask components such as rubber straps or metal clips or else adhesives also there. So these may cause the allergic contact dermatitis when used for prolonged use. And natural rubber latex is a hypersensitivity for health hazards. So allergen causing allergic contact dermatitis due to PPE include like rubber accelerators used in latex and non-latex gloves, and the textiles dyes like azo dyes in clothing, the metal in mask and boots, and so the adverse effects of medical devices like PPE and medical textiles can be studied by using biocompatibility. The biocompatibility plays a major role in it is the direct proportional. So the biocompatibility of a test is a major one for finding out the quality of a medical device or medical textiles and PPE. So the basic parameters for biocompatibility test selection is based on ISO 10993 standard. This standard gives an how to classify the device is based on the site of contact and duration of contact. The more overall, the major PPE and medical textiles falls under the surface device as per ISO 10993 Part 1 2018. Mostly these particular medical textiles PPE falls under this, and three major studies like cytotoxicity, sensitization, and irritation study is mandatory and recommended for medical textiles and PPE. The cytotoxic studies are conducted as per ISO 10993 Part 5 2009, and sensitization as per ISO 10993 Part 10, and irritation study as per ISO 10993 Part 10. So cytotoxicity study has been conducted as per ISO 10993 Part 5. Is a cytotoxic test using rapid, standardized, sensitive, reliable, and cost-effective means to determine whether a material contains significant quantities of biologically harmful extractables. So qualitative evaluation of cytotoxicity is appropriate for screening purpose. There is two methods available in ISO standard 10993, that qualitative evaluation and quantitative evaluation. The qualitative evaluation is assessing the changes in gender morphology, vacuolization, detachment, and cell lysis and membrane integrity of the cell lines. The quantitative evaluation of cytotoxicity is preferable as ISO 10993. That is, it has been done by MTT assay or NRU assay. It is useful to measure the cell death inhibition of cell growth, cell proliferation, or colony formation. So, as per ISO 10993, for PPE and medical textiles, both qualitative evaluation and quantitative evaluation is recommended. Now, for example, I'm giving a picture of the cell line treated with negative control. This is a cell line, BALB CT3 cell line, which is having a confluence of more than 80%. This cell line, which has been treated with positive control, like SLS or gloves, or is a natural rubber latex, it may be having a cell lines will be, lysis will be there more than 80%. So when a product is having a cytotoxic effect, is what next? If you're having a product which is having a cytotoxic effect, how to go about it? Any cytotoxic effect can be of concern. It is primarily an indication of potential for in vivo toxicity study, and the device cannot necessarily be determined to be unsuitable for a given clinical application based solely on cytotoxic data. Given the extreme sensitivity of this test, medical text devices demonstrated to be cytotoxic must be assessed along with in vivo studies to evaluate the risk to the human life. Like if you get a gloves product, example a gloves product, which is made up of natural rubber latex, it is prone and it has been proved that the latex will be causing a cytotoxic effect. But at which concentration the cytotoxic effect is been observed, that has to be reported. And along with that, we have to do the in vivo toxicity studies like irritation study and sensitization study. And based on the results of all these three tests, we can go for biological evaluation report, which gives an insight about the raw materials as well as the adverse effects of the device. And we can we can give a support to the product to be launched. The skin irritation test is done as per ISO 10993 Part 10. It has been done in rabbits. It has been for the materials which will be extracted in polar and non-polar solvents, and the extracts will be applied on the rabbit dorsal skin to find out the adverse effects of the extracts on the skin of the rabbits. The scoring of the rabbit skin will be done by tracing method. The erythema and edema will be noted, and the scoring will be finalized. That is, results will be given based on the score as per Dreyse scoring method, whether it is non-irritant or irritant. The sensitization test is in guinea pig. It's been done, and it has been done as per ISO 10993 Part 10. And the three methods are available, like guinea pig maximization test, guinea pig closed patch method, and local lymph node assay. So example, if a device is cytotoxic in vitro but does not produce any irritation or sensitization responses in animals, a biological safety evaluation can be performed to support and document the safety of the device. A biological safety evaluation report from an expert toxicologist can be a strong supporting document for regulatory submission. So GLR can support you in this regard. So I've given a clear minimum information about the quality requirements on PPE and medical textiles. So it depends on the final device. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Navneet Krishnan, for giving details about your activities and also about the technical textiles. A very huge amount of experience that you have for all your professional career, and there will be a lot of people who would want to learn a lot about you.
Yes, sir.
Friends, this brings us to the end of the presentations for the day. But before I close, let me take this opportunity to thank the supporters specifically for this 3-day webinar series and the virtual trade expo, the Ministry of Health, Republic of Kenya, the Association of Indian Medical Device Industry, the Medical Association of Tanzania, the Engineering Export Promotion Council of India, the Medical Association of Kenya, the Critical Care Society of Kenya, National Health Authority, Government of India, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and the Association of Kenya Medical Laboratory Scientific Officers, and of course the GLR Laboratories Private Limited. So thank you very much. At the end, may I invite Mr. DL Pandya, the webinar coordinator, to propose a vote of thanks, please.
Thank you very much, Dharmendra Bhai. With this, we are ending this series of webinars for the 3 days, but the virtual exhibition will go on. And as Mr. Sanyal Desai also mentioned earlier, the dates are also extended. So we hope all the visitors or participants of this webinar series will take benefit of this virtual exhibition. Friends, this IMDI conferences is being organized for last 16 years as one of the important annual celebration of knowledge sharing, networking, and brainstorming. I hope this 3 days of webinar series has given a lot of insight on various important aspects related to the medical device industry. This IMDI's 2020 series of webinars will continue. This is the first 3 webinar series. Like what we generally do in our annual conferences, we'll highlight various other aspects related to the medical device technologies, starting from regulations to the material manufacturing processes and many other aspects related to the medical device technologies. So I hope you will all take benefit of these future webinar conferences, which will be announced from time to time on our conference website, imdiconferences.com. And once again, all the dignitaries, all the speakers of all the 3 days of this webinar, and the participants, which I was told that is a big number. More than 600 delegates have participated for these 3 days of webinar, and for future, we'll keep on looking to support from you as participants. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the participation once again, and also to our partners, Radical Communications, and we look forward to working together on this same line in future. Thank you very much, and we hope you will continue visiting the virtual exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pandya. Friends, this was the first virtual trade show and webinar series organized by our organizers. We maybe faced a little bit technical issues being the new normal. However, they are all resolved. And I invite everyone watching this webinar to please visit the virtual trade exhibition. So thank you very much. I must appreciate the efforts of the 2 organizers, Radical Communication led by Mr. Sanyal Desai, and the Medical Plastics Data Service led by Mr. DL Pandya. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.
Appreciate everyone and thank you.